All right. Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to another future-focused weekly update. I'm your host, Christopher Lind, and if I am doing my job well, I am keeping you 10 steps ahead of what's going on at the intersection of business, tech, and the human experience, and giving you some helpful context along the way. Let me first start by saying thank you so much to all of you who are regular listeners, who are watchers, whatever, and have been following along. I really enjoy the engagement and the messages and just the community that's been building around this. Thanks for sticking around. And for those of you who may be new, welcome. I hope you find this helpful. If you do, I would greatly appreciate if you shared this, liked it, engaged with it. It just helps other people find it. And if you really find it valuable, you're welcome to buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Christopher Lind. Or if you or someone you know would benefit from help, I actually do this professionally. So if you are a professional looking for help understanding how to navigate these crazy times, feel free to check out my website, christopherlind.co, and you can see some of the things that I do to help people. All right, let's get into this. I've got a rundown of 3 things today and then a brief case study I'm going to share. So the first one I'm going to talk about is this viral Taco Bell AI shift that people are talking about, and what does it mean and what can we take from it. I'm going to talk about a really recent, I don't know that I'd call it a report. There was a data point that came out from a company called Apollo that's claiming rate trending of AI adoption is down, significant decline. And I'm going to unpack what that is and how to interpret that, or how I think we best interpret that. Then I'm going to talk about KPMG that is making some headlines for its 100-page AI prompt. Okay. So if you're going, what? Yes, 100-page AI prompt that they use. And I'll talk about why it's actually not funny. Well, it's not funny, but it actually helps highlight some of the future of where we're going. And then the case study is going to be a situation where I actually helped an organization use AI to stop, or actually not stop, but change course of an AI implementation. So there you go. Plenty to stick around for. If you want to, you can jump to whichever one is most relevant using the show notes below. But I'd encourage you to stick through the whole thing because this is a good one. Okay, so let's start with the Taco Bell story that is all over. And what basically the story is kind of trending right now, that Taco Bell is doubting their decision to use AI in their drive-thru. So if you have been to a lot of fast food places, one of the new hot trends is you replace your drive-thru folks with AI. And it's not replacing the drive-thru folks, it's just the orders are being taken by AI. And of course, the headline that it's focusing on is, somebody ordering 18,000 cups of water. I think it's a viral TikTok or something like that, where they order 18,000 cups of water to, talk to a human being. So as you can imagine, Taco Bell is, reconsidering whether AI is the right path, which it's at least worth reconsidering. I get that. One of the things, though, that I think isn't making headlines when you actually dig into what's going on here is the fact that Taco Bell has already done 2 million orders using AI. So they have a decent chunk of data. And if you really think about like how many successful ones, I know it's easy to focus on the viral 18,000 water cup moment. But if you really look at it, and I hope Taco Bell does this, in any fast food or any chain that's using AI for some of these more robotic tasks like taking an order, would be the fact that if out of those 2 million, a handful are problematic, it may be an opportunity for you to look at how might we tweak this, but not necessarily do away with this. And that's where I don't know that the headline's necessarily appropriate, because the way it's framed is they're doubting it. They're considering moving on. And they have a good reason, or at least there's a track record for that. Let me not say good reason. There's a track record for that. AI ordering is not new. In fact, as part of getting ready for this week, I happened to watch a video about McDonald's and their history with AI ordering, which, a little backstory there, if you didn't know, back in 2021, which was before, generative AI really hit the market, McDonald's had partnered with AI or with IBM. They'd partnered with IBM to do AI order taking. And they ended up actually pulling the plug in 2024 on it because of similar things. AI was, and I saw some of the viral clips that, of course, make headlines with the McDonald's situation, which it was just doing crazy things like mixing up orders. People were getting ice cream with ketchup on it. People were having all sorts of things mixed on their burgers and stuff like that. Like, it was not, there was a consistent number of problems. And again, the PR behind it was really what was, causing issues with this. So here's the thing with this, though, and this is what I think is a little bit unfortunate about stories like these, is that they can, you get media attention for some of these big public things, and people have this kind of backlash where they just completely back off of it. And so if you're a business leader looking at this going, oh no, like we should just pull our, which will tie to the data point I'm going to talk to next, we should just pull our AI stuff because this sounds like it's going to cause problems. Be careful with that, because yes, as I have said from this time I started talking about AI and advanced tech, AI is an amplifier. It absolutely is. And there are going to be things that, can easily be exploited because it doesn't have general intelligence. And so it doesn't have context. It doesn't understand things. So yes, does it require more work to think about, hey, how do we, make sure that we have the right people in the loop and that are looking at, all these other things along the way, so that we don't end up in these situations. But I get concerned when people then have these reactions to it, because I get it can look bad. You have some of these viral things, and yes, you want to show a state of, hey, we're taking these claims seriously. We're having viral videos pop up that people are doing our AI. And now the latest TikTok trend is how to exploit your Taco Bell drive-thru. Yes, that is a problem. I don't think the solution is, hey, let's dump AI ordering, because the reality is there's really a lot of room for that. Now, I think there'd be a way to do some A/B testing with this to kind of see, maybe give people the option of a human or AI along the way would be one example of something I could do, so they could start to see, do people really want AI? But that might not even be the right thing, because if you ask somebody, would you rather talk to AI or a human? People are always going to say a human most of the time. So you're getting a little bit of a biased piece of feedback. Now, could I see a world where they may now pull back and go, we probably should re-engineer this? And maybe what we do is we have AI take the order, but we put some things in place that flag unusual activity. 18,000 waters, you would think the AI model that they're using to detect things would go, 18,000 waters is an excessive order. Like, there should be some sort of safeguard in place that kicks in if there's and that's not hard to do. I mean, think about your banking software. That's AI that catches things when you go on a trip and you get your card gets declined and you get a call or a thing from your phone. And I know when that first started, people were furious with it. They hated that they would go on a trip and their card wouldn't work and they would have to look silly in front of the cashier as they were like, ugh. And then people got used to it, and they got used to the fact that, oh yeah, that's right, I'm on vacation out of town, I'm probably going to get a thing. Then they automated it, so you got a notification right away. Like, there were ways we worked through this. And I think that's the stage we're in with something like AI ordering, because AI ordering does not necessarily have to mean, and I'm clarifying this because I know some people are like, see, this is taking people's jobs. No. It doesn't have to be that way. It can be something where, because if you know people who have worked in fast food, sometimes being the person taking the orders is one of the most stressful jobs, because you still got everything else to do. So not only are you taking it, you're running around. That's why sometimes the lines get so backed up. So it doesn't have to take people's jobs. If anything, it could help streamline things to say, hey, how are we making sure we get this? Then what we do is we have that person maybe on the inside confirm orders with people, hey, which again adds a level of human quality assurance to things that makes things feel more white glove. You give your order to AI, then at the end, someone comes in and says, hey, I'd like to just confirm your order before we move forward. It runs down what they ordered to say, is there anything that we need to adjust? Okay, so they're spot checking while adding a higher level of service, while freeing them up to know I don't need to be there as the person's fumbling through their order, yelling in the back seat, go, what kids, what do you want? Did you want fries? That's a messy, wasteful time to have somebody sitting there going, oh my gosh, like how long is this order going to take? And they can't really do anything else because they need to be paying attention. So I actually think there's a way that you would look at this and say, how can AI do that initial stage of information gathering? Let's build some safeguards in. So if there's something that immediately flags as that's unusual, before the order gets processed, somebody's going through validating and checking this stuff. If it gets stuck, because I've seen other things like this where if it gets stuck in a loop or it keeps asking, or you can quickly get a notification and the person can go intervene, type of a thing. So there's ways you can do it. And that's the thing that when I saw this article, I went, we are often so binary in our thinking. Taco Bell has a few issues, and so they just throw out AI ordering. McDonald's, granted, had a lot more than a few issues, but they also were doing this in 2021. The fact they threw it out in 2024 is just strange, but I think, I don't fact check me on this one, I think they're revisiting it now that the models have advanced. But again, my point still stands that I don't think it's helpful when we have this attitude of, does AI work for drive-through orders or not? Well, it depends. How are you thinking about it? I think we're learning a lot about some of the things that, risks that you need to do. Like, do you need to consider the risk that people may make a viral TikTok trend of how to exploit this stuff? And so you better go, all right, well, what do we need to safeguard and put in place to make sure we don't end up trending on TikTok for our AI doing something? Which means you might need people who are monitoring trends on social media to go, hey, guess what? We do this, so we need to roll out an update to our AI model to make sure it doesn't make this mistake. Like, there are ways you can do this that, in my opinion, actually require human oversight to pick up on some of this stuff. Could you do it, like I said, in a way where it's doing that initial order gathering stage where that is messy, people take forever, you can't really understand them, type of a thing? Do you need to make sure you put some safeguards in place so somebody can intervene if someone's getting frustrated or stuck or their accent is difficult to detect? Things like that. Sure. Should you make sure that there is a human confirming the order before it gets forward and they drive up to the drive-thru and go, where's my 18,000 watt? Right? Like, there are ways you can think about this that don't require you to go, so do we scrap AI at the drive-thru or not? No, I think what the data shows with Taco Bell and McDonald's and some other ones that I've looked into is there are lots of lessons learned. There are lots of opportunities. I have yet to encounter anything where I go, yeah, this just is a bad use case. I actually think it's an ideal use case. I think there's some risks that need to be mitigated. There's some ways the technology needs to be adjusted, and you need to work with your dev team to make sure there's ways that you can roll out rapid updates so that if you discover an exploit due to a TikTok video or something like that, it can quickly and rapidly be implemented. This goes back to why you can't scale down to a skeleton workforce and go, we're just going to let AI do everything. No, because you need people who are going to catch those things. You need to validate it from, your actual field. You need the IT teams then who can say, hey, how do we roll out an update to all of our AI drive-thrus that mitigates this thing that we just found out, ordering 18,000 cups of water is a thing. Hey, we better roll out an update that makes sure if any orders over a certain threshold get put in, we automatically have it ding our, human who's at the drive-thru. And if you're listening to the way I'm breaking this all down, I hope that you're seeing there's actually lots of room for people still to be in the loop, actually doing more valuable work. because the valuable work is not sitting there as Janet is yelling at Johnny in the back to quit picking on his sister and tell him how many chicken nuggets he wants in his McDonald's Happy Meal, or, what kind of churro he wants in his Taco Bell meal. Like, that's not a good use of human time. So why wouldn't you use AI that doesn't get annoyed, doesn't get impatient? If they change their order 32 times while you're sitting there, like, it's fine. Let them do that. Let them take the time. But then you can also still have some safeguards to go, if somebody's really sitting there, like, maybe I need to step in and make sure everything's okay. Like, there's ways that you can do this that actually allow the people to not only just have jobs, but in my opinion, offer a higher quality customer experience, higher quality employee experience, and actually grow the business. Because if you do this right, by improving your employee experience and your customer experience, your customers are going to enjoy your product, your business, what you're doing more, which is going to bring them back, tell their friends about it. Hey, I just had the smoothest drive-through experience ever. It was great. And I felt like a royalty because they came back and checked in with me, made sure everything was right, asked if there was anything else I needed help with. Like, wow, I did not feel rushed at all. And I felt like there's ways you can do it. And then as the employee, you're not so frustrated by annoying kids at lunchtime that by the time they get to the drive-thru, you want to just whip their food in their face and go, get out of here, type of a thing. And I know I'm being a little hyperbolic, but if you really start to think about this, you start to see that when you start evaluating it for the complexity of work it is and go, where do people struggle? Where are they vulnerable? Where is AI not? AI doesn't get impatient. Perfect. Where do drive-through people get really impatient? Well, they get impatient when people change their order 1,000 times. They get impatient when people didn't come to the window ready for it to go. Perfect. Well, then let's use AI there. Where do people like to be helpful? When they feel like somebody's struggling or that it's not going the way they like to de-escalate. Okay, well, then let's make sure people are doing that. Where does it improve the customer experience? Like, all this stuff, if we break it down and actually understand what does the drive-through experience look like. And I think, if anything, one of the other things that this reveals is that things we think are simple are often far more complex than we realize. And this is a perfect example of, drive-through, that's easy. People give their order, you drive up, you give them food, they pay, you leave. Sure, and I bet a lot of assumptions were made about AI being implemented in the drive-through based on that, which is probably why you're seeing some of the things blow up that you did, is people went, oh yeah, we know what this is. Here, we'll build a thing that does this. We'll roll it out. We'll just, not make sure staff knows how to work with it, what things to look for. Like, we won't build safeguards. And I don't know all the details of how they implemented it, but I guarantee, Taco Bell, you're welcome to reach out and have me come in and work with you on this. I guarantee a lot of that work was either glossed over or done kind of haphazardly because, we're pretty sure we know how this works. And there's probably lots of data that supports it. We know how many customer interactions there are. We know the busy times a day. We know, the average order size and all. I'm not saying no work was done, but I'm guessing a lot of the actual complexity of the work was not examined. And then this blows up. And the sad part is then people go, see, AI doesn't work. And it's like, actually, no, if you did it right, it would actually make things better for everyone. And I think this is just one very basic use case where you would go, this should be easy. And you go, nope, it's not. And that's exactly why you need to take the time to do it right, because if you don't, it will cost you in PR, in lost revenue, in lost customer, in all this stuff. AI is the most powerful amplifier, the most powerful catalyst we've ever seen. So I think this is a good example of why you need to take it seriously and why the solution isn't let's get rid of it, but let's learn from what we've learned from this and then adapt. Now, moving on to topic number 2 is Apollo Academy, apolloacademy.com. they've got this. I just released, I think 2 days ago or this week or something. They just released this, image, this graph that says, and the article is AI adoption rate trending down for large companies. And so, of course, it hits the news reel and everybody's going, aha, see, look, AI is on its way down now. Companies are realizing it's not adding the value. And this would then, I also would say, tie into some of the hype and hoopla out of that MIT study that only 95% of AI pilots are failing. And so logically, people are concluding, MIT found and other things are finding it's not quite as effective as they thought, which my previous example was another case where you could easily come to that conclusion. Then you all of a sudden get this new data point that says, it's trending downward. And if you look at the graph, here's the thing. I don't think this is an accurate representation of what's going on, and I'm going to explain why. But if you go look up this Apollo Academy image, you'll see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think, or 7 lines that back in November of 2023, there's kind of a little bit of a hype, and then it goes, and then there's some steady growth. And then about June, July of this year, actually July, it starts to trend down, at least for companies over 250. Now, if you look, smaller companies still are very much on the growth trajectory, but bigger ones, are starting to tip down. And you could go, oh my gosh, this is the beginning of the end. The AI bubble is going to pop. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not. First of all, I made a comic about this that I'm not sure if I'll post this week. I'll probably post it next week. Anyway, but one of the things that I'm already seeing happen regularly is we're now in the AI fishbowl, and most people don't even realize how much they've adopted AI. It's become the oxygen they're breathing. They're not thinking about the fact they're breathing it. And there was a conversation I was in this past week where someone had said, yeah, adoption's down and I don't use AI as much as I used to. And I actually dug into it a little bit, and they had this realization moment of, oh yeah, I guess I just use it now. This tool so much is just part of everything I do. I don't think about it as AI anymore. I just think about it as one of my workplace productivity tools. That's like if you were to do a survey on Microsoft Office products. There probably was a time where it was Microsoft Office is coming down, adoption is going down. And it's no, it's not. It's just now so normal to use the tools that people don't think about it. Now, the other thing is it's coming from the US Census Bureau, which is a bit of a unique place for a question like this to be coming from. Also, I tried to dig into what questions are you asking people? And I couldn't find that data anywhere. And I don't like when you get stuff like this because you see a data trend and you go, yeah, well, what did you ask? I mean, obviously, don't take this as Christopher saying there's nothing to be taken from this. I'm not saying that. Whatever it is, they've been asking the same questions since from the chart, November of 2023. And there's a pattern in that. I would say I would put little weight on the percentages of anything, because until you know what they're actually asking, how are they defining adoption? Who are they asking? How much detail are they getting? It's well, the numbers are irrelevant, but the pattern of you're asking the same question to 1.2 million firms and you're starting to see things move in a certain direction. Okay, I think there's something we can learn from it. And I think looking at the data, I think we can learn from the fact that smaller organizations are absolutely likely still on the growth trajectory right now because of the fact that when you're small and hard pressed, you kind of don't have the luxury of going, you know what, I'm just going to go back to the way we always did it. I'm just going to lean on this person over here that I don't know anything about. I'm not going to do the additional work with AI. It's well, you're in startup mode, so you don't have that luxury. So it doesn't surprise me that they're continuing to go up because they're benefiting from it. They know they're benefiting from it and they don't have another option. I think the downward trend you're seeing in big organizations, in some ways, is that fishbowl effect. I think in some ways, people are just now, especially in large organizations, using it so ubiquitously, and it's in so many of their tools. If they're asked, do you use AI? They aren't necessarily going, oh yeah, I do. They're just doing what they normally do, because if you look at the MIT study, 90% of people said they use AI every day. So I don't know how you can say, well, actually, we only have 12% adoption. Okay, there's a huge disconnect there, which to me goes back to the fact in larger organizations, in many organizations, people are using it in so many things they're not really thinking about. So I think you have this fishbowl effect that's happening. I think that's absolutely a part of what's going on. But I think why you're seeing a difference in large companies, I already mentioned what you're seeing in small, like they don't have that luxury. So in large, you do have some of this. I do see some reverberation back to where they've been, where they go, yeah, we tried the one before, the Taco Bell AI drive-through thing. You know, you're having that happen in big companies. Yeah, we tried the whole AI thing, didn't really work. So we're just going to kind of go back to business as usual. Well, in bigger companies, you have a little more padding and comfort to be able to do that. And so I do think some companies are doing that, which I think is actually a miss. I commented on an article the other day about the fact that I think we're actually going to move in large companies into this stage where things are going to kind of course correct too far. And especially in big organizations, we're going to have room for missed opportunity, which is where little companies, I think, are actually going to potentially usurp the big dogs. The big companies are going to go, wow, we had some mistakes and it was expensive and it didn't go quite as according to plan. We're going to pull back on this, and they're going to pull back too far. The little companies are going to see it and go, like, we're not pulling back on this. We see what you learned and we're just going to adapt it. And they're actually going to capitalize on that. So I think that is some of what you're seeing. So is there some reduction in the adoption rate? Yeah, I do think, especially in large companies, we're seeing people pull back a little bit. But I don't think that means it's necessarily because they're using AI less. It may be using it less in some of these surgical ones. I also think it indicates some of the complexity in larger organizations. That's one of the biggest things that I think any business leader can take away from this, is the fact that, yeah, we have a lot more, and you see this in big companies in general. There's a lot more silos. There's a lot more black holes. There's a lot more, disparate systems and, workflows, because you have more people. So you have more specialized stuff. Those specialized people don't talk to the other people. And as a result, you've got these black holes and these black boxes scattered throughout. And so work is more complex. You quickly find that what you might have been able to do in a small organization, hey, let's roll over this workflow to, AI. Oh, you can't do that because that's actually 3 different departments with 3 different VPs who all have different personalities and different agendas and are trying to protect their own. And so now you're trying to streamline this workflow, and you got 2 who agree on this and 1 who wants to do this. And 6 months later, they're still arguing about who's actually the decision maker and who's going to pay for it. And you're like, oh my gosh. And so I do think in larger companies, you're seeing some of this pullback of, this wasn't quite the magic bullet we were sold. But do I think that we should conclude from this that, AI is dying down and, it's going to start going away? No. In fact, I tried to look into it. I couldn't find anything specifically, but I remember back in the 2000s, in the early 2000s, there was a similar pattern with the internet. I mean, good grief, just think about the .com bubble, right? Everything blew up and then it popped. But the internet didn't go away. Obviously, I'm sitting here recording this on a SaaS platform. Like, the internet didn't go away. The same is true with AI. And so some of the things out there hyping that, now this one census that we have almost no data on, what are you even asking about, comes out with numbers that I don't think are super helpful. Some trend lines we can definitely learn from. We're all going to say, I think the AI experiment has failed. Like, come on, folks. Don't get bought into some of this stuff. There's always so much more going on to it. If anything, if you're a small organization, this is good news for you. This is an opportunity for you to catch up to some of the big dogs who maybe you felt like, man, they've had the money to buy all these new tools. They've been throwing them at their people. I feel like they're just so much further ahead. Well, guess what? It sounds like they're pulling back a bit. Learn from their mistakes, leapfrog them, and take them over. I mean, I'm telling you, I've seen this trend line plenty of times before. Big companies are going to slow down in their risk aversion and, things like that, and some legitimate reasons why they have to slow down because they're making some big mistakes. But use it as an opportunity to leapfrog them. And in any case, once again, if you're trying to figure this stuff out and going, this clearly is a problem. I need to take this seriously. Reach out to someone like myself. You don't have to reach out to me, but this is what I do. And I do it for a reason because there is so much opportunity for things to get better. And there's so much stuff coming out all over the place. And it is high risk. It is high risk what you're doing. And I get some people will respond by going, well, then I'm just going to avoid it. I actually think that's the wrong play to make, at least without fully having explored what you're doing. And so that would be my advice on this one is don't take this as, I think AI is dying. Well, no, it's not. Even its own trend graph doesn't say that. But use this as an opportunity to go, you know what? This is actually a good indication. Now's the perfect time to be leaning in at this because I may be able to take advantage of missed opportunities other companies aren't going to see, or I might be able to avoid mistakes that other people now have already charted because they've done some of the early adoption work. Now I can come in and I can do it on a safer scale because I've got some data to operate off of. So there's my take on that one and what way I think we're going to continue to see moving forward. Now, third, let's talk about this KPMG thing. If you didn't see this, KPMG was all over the place because, and I mean, the headline sells it right there. They're giant 100-page AI prompt type of a thing. It's a 25-page document. And at first, some of the things I was seeing, I'm like, really? You're making fun of this? People were making fun of the fact they're like, they're getting rid of all their consultants and then they're stuffing people in a room to write a 100-page document that's going to replace their jobs. And I'm like, that is not what is happening here. KPMG, kudos to you for what you're doing, because I actually think what you're doing right here is an example of what good looks like. I actually think this is a really good example of what good looks like. So for those of you who may be laughing at 100-page prompt, as people create their job replacement and, waste their time writing AI prompts, I'm like, this is where things are going. This is actually a smart move. And no, this doesn't mean everybody's job is going to be writing 100-page AI prompts. But to give some context to this, essentially what happened was they said, look, we have this really bulky tax thing that we do with all of our clients. Takes us forever. And a lot of it is just literally going through, pulling together data, pulling through all this other stuff, trying to sort through all the noise, which, as you can imagine, I don't know about anybody else, but tax time is not exactly, I'm not somebody who has everything neatly sitting in one spot with little pull tabs along things. You start scaling that to the size of an organization, it's messy. And so KPMG said, look, we have people spending lots and lots and lots of time doing the same thing to try and get this stuff together. Let's pull together some of the brightest people who know this stuff inside and out. And let's actually lay this out. People were laughing at a 100-page prompt. This is process mapping. This is what they're doing. They're just process mapping it in a way that AI understands. They're just writing it in a new language. We've done this before. Hey, we need to know what our process is. Oh, okay. Well, let's get in a room and let's pull this all together. Now they just said, let's do that through the lens of how would we explain this to AI so that AI can do some of this work for us? Because for us in the workflow, we know we need to do this. Then we spend countless weeks, months running around, gathering all this stuff, figuring out what we have, what we don't have. A lot of it, just like the drive-thru, is wasted time. We're sitting here waiting on Johnny to figure out what kind of sauce he wants on his chicken nuggets. And we're like, oh my gosh, same thing with this. We know we need to do this. So we send the stuff out and we get back 300 reports and only 80 of them are actually relevant. And so we need to figure out which ones are and which ones aren't. And so we just literally sort pages. Well, okay, figure out how to map that, describe it to AI, tell it what it is you are trying to accomplish, what you're doing, how to analyze that stuff. And then let's let AI do that initial work with the oversight of something. So the fact KPMG took the time to say, let's pull everybody together and map this out, that's really smart. That's why I'm looking at the articles and the comments that are like, this is stupid. Like, what a waste of everybody's time. What a waste of everybody's time. This is the very thing you should be doing. They're doing this right. They are process mapping with AI in mind. Now, you may say, well, yeah, but then they're just going to have a 100-page prompt that they just run, and then AI is going to do all the work for them. No, they're not. And if you actually look into it, they even know that. Because as much as you might say, and KPMG, the folks who are building this know this, and you can see it when you actually dig into stuff, they know that just because they follow the same process doesn't mean it goes the same at every organization. They just know we go through this process. There are things we uncover along the way that then tell us this and that. And at each of those steps, based on what we discover, we might make the same moves, but we need to know when that happens so we can discern and decide which moves are the right moves. And so what they're doing is they're actually laying this out, going, here's what we do. Here are the key points. Here is, where we have stop gaps. That's why it's 100 pages. And that's the thing that I think is a little misleading, is that it almost seems to indicate they're doing like a one-shot prompt. They're saying, okay, here, let's just dump a bunch of information. Let's feed this one prompt in. And maybe I couldn't quite get a sense of it. It might be the initial prompt is 100 pages. It might be. If that's the case, I would be interested to see the results they get. My personal experience with these big Gen AI models is when you try and ask it to do too much all at once, it doesn't do very well. If this is now 100 pages broken into steps where they have checkpoints along the way, I think they're going to get better results than if they just dump all the data in and then feed it a 100-page prompt and wait till it spits out the other end. Personal opinion, but I couldn't get detail on this. But what was clear from this is they literally talk about the fact that they now just still have people that they plan on working alongside this. Yes, they spent months on the front end, a big team of people. Again, kudos KPMG for recognizing we go slow to go fast. We took the time to map this thing out, optimize it for AI, think through every possibility and all this stuff. Most people go, we don't got time for that. Like, well, let's just get to it. Let's throw Gen AI on our next project and move forward. No, they said, let's do it right on the first front so that we can make sure it's actually helping us, that we got the best people with the best minds, the best experience thinking about these things so that we can then move it forward. And if you look at some of the comments, their goal in this is not to eliminate people. Now, I would challenge that a little bit in that I do think big consulting, well, one, a lot of them are eliminating jobs, but two, if you've ever worked with a big consulting company, you've seen the waste. You've seen with like 10 people showing up to a meeting, you're like, why are you all here? Like, what's going on with all this? So there's some room for optimization, but you can see their goal is they want their people not doing the boring stuff. They want their people out there. Their exact quote is, we want them out there helping clients with chewy problems. You can like or dislike that comment, but that's what they're saying, which they get it. I actually, the second I saw they were writing a 100-page prompt and then saw how they were doing it, I'm like, this is somebody who actually understands how they're supposed to be working with AI. Doesn't surprise me. A big four, consulting firm would be one of the ones that's getting it, professional services figuring it out. But I think this really cuts against this whole grain of, just go fast and break things. Nope. KPMG knows there's too much risk associated with that. From what I can tell, it's not a run everything through a 100-page prompt and then call it good. No, it's do that to help get us through the core stuff so that we can move forward. And then we're going to focus our people's time on the things that matter most. And, And this is an example of doing AI right, in my opinion. And if you want to go check it out, I'd encourage you to do it. And once again, I know this one I'm plugging what I do more, but this is the kind of stuff I try and help people work through, is how do you actually work through this and make sure you're considering all these things, and what risks might you encounter? Where are the points in that 100-page checklist that you want to make sure somebody's signing off or checking or validating the conclusions it came to before you move forward with it? And that's why I say, if they really are throwing a 100-page prompt at something and hoping it comes out the other end, to me, that's dangerous, because you're going to get to the end and so much is going to have happened. It's going to be hard to actually spot check it along the way. And so one of the things, as a takeaway for anybody listening to this going, okay, so maybe we want to do something similar, is I don't know how their prompt works, but if you're doing this work and you're looking to create the one-shot prompt for your work, I would advise against that. That is not the best way to work with Gen AI. It might seem like it's producing a great result, but so much is happening, it'll be impossible for you to really know. That said, taking the time to actually generate, hey, what is this whole thing? And let's work through this. Let's figure this out so people can focus on this and they're not wasting their time on some of these mundane activities. Well done. Well done, KPMG. And I think this is the kind of stuff we should see from more folks, which it's not new. This is process optimization. I was talking with a CHRO friend this week who had reached out to ask me some questions about how to think about AI. And as I was describing something similar to this, they said, isn't this just kind of like what we did when Lean Six Sigma was kind of the big thing? Everybody's like, we're going to Lean Six Sigma our way out of everything. And then they realize like, oh, this is actually a lot of work. And a lot of it has to do with just understanding what actually happens. I'm like, yep, pretty much. Do you have to think about it differently? Yeah. The way you think about AI, are the risks a lot higher? Yeah, absolutely they are. But there's a lot of familiarity. So if you look at some of this stuff and you freak out a bit, don't think this is totally new territory. But the part of it that is new, if you need help, let me know. Okay, so last one, real quick, to focus on a positive case study. So I'll share a little bit about an organization that I was engaged with, or they engaged me because they were in the process of preparing to roll out some AI coaching. Okay, that in the HR space, that's often seen as like, yeah, we should do that. AI is great for coaching. We should roll out AI coaching. And so because it's a pop trend, a lot of people just assume AI coaching will inherently be a positive thing because, I don't know, someone somewhere put it on an approved list of AI initiatives, and suddenly everybody thinks that's what success looks like. So this was somebody who thought the same thing, but they needed a little help identifying tools and thinking through things. And as we got into it, one of my warnings was, just be careful. Have you considered the fact that your AI coaching may result in increased attrition of your top talent and even some of your mid talent as the coaching improves them? And the room went silent a little bit as everybody went, well, wait a minute. What do you mean? Why would AI coaching send people out? And I asked about their engagement data. I said, well, do you know what the overall health and culture of your organization is? Do you know what your opportunities are? Because if there's consistent gaps in your culture and organization, you implement AI coaching that helps people see things more clearly, helps them, be more effective, have more confidence in their ability. If you got major cultural stop gaps and there's like nothing they can do about it, you're just going to create a bunch of people who are talented, capable, and able to leave, and they will. And it caused a little bit of a panic moment because they hadn't really been paying attention to any of their engagement survey results. And so now there was a little bit of panic because it's like, well, now how do we figure that out? Like, how do we mitigate and prevent ourselves from implementing an AI tool that increases attrition in our top talent? And so my solution was, well, we should use AI to help us come up with that. Like, let's work together using AI to rapidly analyze a lot of this stuff and do some analysis on what we find. What are some of the biggest things? And now that we know this is a gap we want to mitigate, we can be specific in asking for AI's help to identify patterns and trends that are high risk. And so we were able to take all their historical engagement data, pull it together, and use AI to analyze it, and actually develop a plan of what are some of the biggest areas of opportunities that we have that we want to proactively get in front of, that we think are going to be the highest risk. Now, was AI doing the work for us? No, not necessarily. But was it helping us augment this because we had a specific problem set we were trying to address? Did it help us identify where in the system? Because we did another AI tool that actually analyzed different system indicators that we could use to measure some of this stuff to try and get lead indicators before people left or before it shows up in engagement survey. Because unfortunately, by the time it shows up in an engagement survey, that's already where people are at. You want to start to try and trigger and find what are the indicators of this stuff before it happens, so that as you start rolling out AI coaching, as you start looking at some of these things, you can be watching for this stuff to go, hey, are we seeing some of these lead indicators that might lead us to believe people are growing, developing, and maybe on their way out? And so we were actually able to do that collaboratively and in parallel. We still move forward with the AI coaching plan, but we changed the approach and we actually tied it. So rather than just saying we're rolling out AI coaching, we actually tied it to some of the things that we were able to pull from this data that had largely sat on a dusty shelf. Because if you've ever been in an organization, the unfortunate part is usually after an engagement survey, senior leaders get it. They take a quick look at it. They see if there's anything big that they can pull from it. They roll it out. They pass it down. Leaders all kind of do the same thing. And then it just goes on a shelf. There's usually not a lot of trend analysis on it. There's not a lot of, detailed digging into it and insights. And sometimes it's because people aren't really sure what they're trying to accomplish. In this case, we were able to say, well, we know what we're trying to accomplish. We're planning on investing heavily in the development of our talent. And what we don't want to do is develop them to the point where our best ones decide to go. So how do we mitigate that? And what can we learn from this? And so not only did we have it analyze the engagement results, but we had it scour some of the different systems to try and find indicators that might tell us, hey, where might there be some real problems. It also gave us a series of use cases that we were able to focus as the AI coaching app was rolling out. We knew which use cases were the ones that would be most helpful for people. So rather than just telling everybody, hey, you have access to an AI coach, which sounds cool, but most people don't know what to do with it. And so they don't do anything with it. We were able to say, based on these things, we know these are the biggest areas that many of you are struggling with, or areas that you're trying to work on. We know as an organization that we're trying to do work on these because we recognize it's a gap in our culture and we want to close it. We need your help. And we want this AI coaching app to help you help us actually improve these areas. So in a way, it's funny because they were planning on doing an AI initiative. We actually ended up using AI to help us not eliminate the AI initiative, but augment and tweak what we were doing with it. And we actually netted a much better result. And we were able to actually measure success of not only the AI coaching implementation, but of the organization's health as well. Because this whole analysis we did on the front end with AI actually helped us identify a scorecard that helped us better measure what is the overall organizational health of our people? Like, how are they actually doing? So we're not waiting a year or 2 years for an engagement survey to come in and retroactively give us information about where people are. And so then we were able to go, we're still in this process, but the plan is to then be able to say, now when we go into the engagement survey, we can actually proactively know, hey, these are areas, and we can actually guide people, not to tell them what they're supposed to do, but to say, we know these are areas of opportunity that have been in the past. Be sure you're telling us, are things getting better here? Because otherwise you're just leaving people to take an engagement survey on whatever they're feeling that day. And a lot of times that's not super helpful. So there you go. Food for thought for those of you who may be, in a leadership role, thinking about how do we actually, improve and grow our teams, or maybe how do we do a better job understanding the overall health of our organization and the people within it. Some food for thought. And again, if you need help thinking through those things, this is literally what I do. So you know where to find me. And I love doing this stuff. All right. I think if anything, if I were to kind of recap some of just the biggest takeaways from all of this stuff is that one, AI is not going anywhere despite what you may hear. So don't get sucked into the noise of it's here, it's gone, it's going away, it's picking up, it's right. Things are much more steadily growing in healthy ways. Well, healthy could be debated, but right, they're steadily growing, and that's not going to change. We're just going to continue to see this go despite whatever survey or trend report or whatever may come out, despite whatever headline comes up that blows up a specific organization for a specific use case that makes people maybe draw back a little bit. In general, it's just going to continue marching forward because it is clear that while we still haven't figured this out, there is tremendous value in it. So I think if anything, that should give you some consistency with it. I hope the other big thing you take away from this is AI should not be taking human jobs. It really should not. It might be taking certain aspects of it. There might be certain things that need to go the way of the dinosaurs, but they're being augmented, they're being changed, they're being adapted. And so your real risk is complacency. Your real risk is complacency. And if you're an organization, the same is true. Your real risk is complacency. Going, this is big and scary, or this is, the other risk is you just go too fast. So I think those are the biggest things that everybody can walk away with from all of these different ones. And again, if you need help with it, you know where to find me. And I thoroughly enjoy doing this, but hopefully this help gave you some context and some insight into what's going on right now. So with that, I will see you on the other side.